Why stories are the key to getting your message heard. Hey everybody, Braden Chase here, and welcome to another Getting Ready for Lunch with Braden. A fun little video that I'm trying to start out here. It's much better for me to post these during the day. And I know it's kind of awkward because I don't get very good engagement right now, but it's so much easier to find all of you and answer questions and stuff like that at this time. So it's good to be here with you guys. I wanted to share something that's really, really interesting to me and been very important, right? So one of the interesting things about just talking to people and having friends is that you often want to share things with them. Oh, I had this cool experience. Let me tell you what happened. Oh, this bad thing happened. Let me tell you what happened. I got in a car accident a little while ago. Let me tell you what happened. Right? And we're always telling stories to each other about what happened. What a lot of people don't notice is, or are unaware of, I was unaware of this when I was younger, was that we tell stories to ourselves as well, and we do it all the time. Hey, Radin! And doing that, right, as we tell stories to ourselves, we often can kind of guide our own minds, and we can convince ourselves of things that aren't necessarily as true as they might seem. Or we can reinforce beliefs that we already have, sometimes of things that are true and sometimes of things that are not true, but it's that act of storytelling that helps us make sense of the world. That's just how our brains work. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just how we are. When something happens, the camera falls on the ground, we build a story. Why did that happen? Well, first this person reached up and then they missed it, and then it landed on the table, and then it fell on the ground, now it's broken. Cause and effect, right? And we process that through story. It's the part of our brain that understands cause and effect. So that's just this key important thing. So how does that apply to our life now as we're trying to share our message, right? Processing of stories. And the way that it works is that people, when you come up to them with just facts and say, this is how it is, you broke it, or you fixed it, or it's your fault, or it's his fault, or whatever, you just say it, there's no story, and people will resist. Because it is through the story that we process the cause and effect, that we process reason, not through the fact, but through the story. So if we can understand the story, then the facts become apparent, and we can understand what's going on. I mean, how many times have you gone up and you just told somebody, guess what? This is how something works. And then someone goes, well, what about this? And then they have exceptions, and what about this? And what about this? And they start fighting you and resisting you on the message that you're sharing. This happened to me a lot. Not so much anymore, but it used to happen to me a lot. And I remember specifically a little bit of backstory on me. So my son was diagnosed with autism years ago. And as an autistic child, right, it was very difficult to take care of him. Lots of complexity involved in that. If you know anybody with autism, you know how hard that is. But my wife and I decided, you know what, we're going to do something about this. We are not going to let him stay autistic. So we did a lot of research, did a lot of different things, and we ended up finding a resource, a diet that was designed to help with autism. We're like, let's do it. It's the only one option that we have. So we went through all of this work, and we built the whole thing, and we had some pretty good results. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But I remember about 10 years after that, 10 years after we took care of my son, and he was doing much better, I went to go share it with someone else. I had a friend who was really smart, good friend. We were working together on a different project. And I'm like, hey, let's do this. And he knew someone who had autism. And I'm like, I know how to help with that. Let's talk. So I sat down and I said, this is how it works. This is what's going on in the body. This is what's happening to this. This is the intestines causing these problems. This is the kind of food you got to do. This is the diet. I was like, bam, 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 because I knew all this stuff and it was so cool. And the guy just kind of sits there and goes, oh, that's interesting. And he kind of sat back, and we talked about it for a little bit, and he dropped it, walked away. We changed topics, and like all that energy and all that excitement and everything that I was trying to share with him, just gone. And I was like, dude, I just like shared with you basically the cure to autism, the uncurable disease for children, and you just ignored it. What is wrong with you? I was really mad. The same thing happened a while ago with a friend of mine, with my brother-in-law. I'm like, what is this family relation? with a brother-in-law. I got this book that talked about finance, right? And particularly value investing. And I want to get into all of that. But I read through the book and it really helped me understand a particular process in investing and how do you make money on the stock market. I'm like, oh, sweet, let's do that. So I go in and I start reading a little bit. I start going, I'm like, this really, really makes sense. So I went up to my brother-in-law and I said, okay, read this book. It's great. And he goes, I don't want to read any of those books. I'm like, but it's good for you. He's like, you shouldn't read the books either. I'm like, what? But I already read the book. And he's like, no, this is not. And there was this total resistance going on in what he was trying to do. And I'm just trying to share this with him. He's almost fighting back against me. And I'm like, what on earth is going on? Then I learned the power of stories. And I learned how, if you tell the story in the right way, there's structures to this and patterns to this. If you tell the story in the right way, you can open up someone's mind to receive that kind of new information and they can understand what's going on. They may not accept it, right? That's a whole different process, right? Accepting the truth or lies or facts or not facts or whatever. That's a whole other issue. But they don't immediately come to confront you on everything you say. And you do that through a story. So one of the stories that I like with the finance book, I went and I talked to my other brother and I went and I told him the story of how I found this book. I'm like, hey man, I've got this book and it's really funny because I kind of got it off the internet and it was free. I'm like, this is a cool thing. Let's look at it. Reading through this finance book, it's really nice. But then I saw this name. I'm like, I know that name. I know somebody with that name. Is it the same person? I don't know. Let's check. So I go in and I check and I'm looking at these different things. I'm like, it is. It's the same guy. I look in the index at the back. This is my friend who was an international finance specialist. He's inside of this book. This is one of the few men in the world that I trust implicitly. Like, he's one of the best men I've ever met. And he's in this book. I didn't even know he was in this book. What on earth? So I'm looking at him like, suddenly, this book had a lot more meaning to me and a lot more trust that I could put in this book. Not because the book changed, but because I knew who it was attached to. And I read through it, and I read through it again, and I figured these things out. And suddenly the story of my own life makes the book more valuable to me. And the story that I told to my brother, my story with the book that I told to my brother, changed everything for him as well. He's like, oh, that's an interesting book. Let me go get one. And it worked. And I was like, bam, this is how it works. So I've done that now with going back to the autism story. That's what I've been doing now for a long time. Instead of showing up and saying, autism is this, and you can cure it this way, and this is the right way, and that's the recipe you use or whatever. I don't do that anymore because people resist it and people fight with it. But if instead I show up and I say, hey, I found this book and my wife and I were kind of not sure about it. We're just trying to help our son the best we can. And it said some kind of interesting things in there, so we tried it out for a little bit. And then the next day, my son already started behaving differently. And within 3 days, he was already eating foods that he refused to eat. If you have any interaction with autistic children, you know how important it is to get the exactly right food. And they only accept certain foods. So having an autistic child eat new foods is a landmark. It is huge, massive thing. And he did in 3 days. The kinds of foods that he refused to eat for years, 3 days after starting this diet, he's like, yeah, sure, I'll have some carrots. Oh yeah, sure, I'll have some salad. What? It's crazy. And then a couple months later, I still remember this. I'm sitting there on the couch and the movie's playing because he loves TV. So he's watching the kids movie there. And I lie down on the couch and he comes up and he lies down next to me. Now, if Christian were a normal child, you'd be like, well, yeah, you're his dad, right? Child comes, lies next to a dad. That makes sense, right? In 4.5 years, he had never done that. Every time I or my wife or anybody tries to hug him, he always pushes away. He hated it. He couldn't handle the physical interaction. Stay away from me. So to have him willingly come up and lie down next to me, the first time in years ever that I have any memory of, the very first time to come and just lie down next to me, I called my wife from the other room, like, Luciani, come look at this. Look at this. He's just lying here with me. And he didn't stay very long, right? It wasn't like, oh, everything's magically fixed in 2 days. I mean, this took a couple of months. But to have him come and just lie down with me was life-changing. Nothing like it had ever happened before. Within 2 months after that, he was saying full sentences. Another 2 months after that, he was code switching, because my wife's from Brazil, so we're switching between Portuguese and English. And so was he. right? Nonverbal autistic child, unable to communicate, can now speak 2 different languages from a diet. Okay, that was the only thing we had changed. There was no therapy, there was no occupational therapy, there was no psychology, there was nothing. We changed the diet and everything shifted. Okay, now when you hear me tell that story is 1, 2, true, and 2, genuine. But when I tell that story, it has a lot more power to it than if I just say, this is what's wrong with your autistic child, and this is how you fix it, and this is what you need to do, and I just give you instructions. Go cook this food and go do these things. It doesn't have the same power because you haven't processed the information through cause and effect and through story. That is how story helps you share your message. Whatever your message is, whether it's autism, or it's marketing, or it's English education, or it's business finance, or it's medication of some kind of supplement, or it's whatever else, some software that you have, whatever your message is that you have, tell your story, tell the story behind that, makes people go, oh, okay, that makes sense. They may still walk away and never purchase, but they understand you in a way that they cannot. Mentally, cognitively, human beings are unable. We cannot understand it without some kind of a cause and effect, which is processed through story. So simply telling your story in the right way is how you help people. It's how you share your message. It's how you open people up so that you can share your message and you can help them. So anyway, that ended up being a lot longer video than I had intended, but I hope that was helpful for you. This is one of the key shifts in my life and in my marketing and in my business, is this ability to tell stories. Because I was really bad at telling stories, right? But that's a whole nother story. So we're getting better at it. And I really need you guys to help and understand those stories. Because if you can build your story, the story behind your product, behind your service, behind what you do, behind your teaching, behind your company, your family, whatever it is that you're doing, if you have a clear story, then you can actually talk to people. Because without that story, you're just noise. Your mind and your customer's mind will filter you out. All of your bells and whistles and check marks and bullet lists and videos and ads and stuff will be ignored unless there's a story attached to it. That's why they're called Instagram stories. It's not an accident that they've used those words. Okay? Anyway, thanks guys. Have a wonderful day. If you have any questions, post under here. And if you want some help, if you need anything from me, if you want me to help, or you want some guidance, I do a free 15-minute discovery call where I can help you kind of walk through some of the challenges that you have in your business, particularly with marketing or with systems. I specialize in copywriting, and I've got a whole team of people to help build everything that you need. Thanks guys. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.